Hi everyone, Jacob here. First, thanks so much for tuning into the Future of Work podcast. Before we get into the show, I just wanted to quickly let you know about an incredible new course I just launched for the Future of Work University called Employee Experience Live. Now, this is a monthly live virtual masterclass where you can join me for 60 minutes a month, during which I will explore the latest trends, strategies, and ideas from the world's leading organizations like Adobe, Facebook, Microsoft, Accenture, Cisco, and dozens of others. And I will also spend time answering your specific questions. You will have an archive of all of the videos in case you aren't able to join me live. You can interact with me anytime via the course platform. And if you sign up, you will also get my course on mastering working with multiple generations for free. The best part is that this is super affordable. To learn more and to sign up, visit employeeexperiencelive.com. That's employeeexperiencelive.com. Please don't forget to rate and review the podcast on whatever your preferred listening platform is. And if you want to get in touch about sponsoring the show, having me speak at your event, or anything else, you can visit thefutureorganization.com, or you can email me directly, jacob@thefutureorganization.com.
What we do actually, we still hire people to fulfill certain functions. But the chair on which we're sitting is fulfilling a function. We have to become more aware that we actually hire human beings that want to be part of something and not just fulfill a function like the chair which we're sitting on. So once that understanding becomes deeper, we will adapt and create our systems around it.
That is Horst Schulze, co-founder and former president of the Ritz-Carlton, and author of the new book, Excellence Wins, a no-nonsense guide to becoming the best in a world of compromise. Even though he is technically retired, he is staying extremely busy. Horst is currently the chairman emeritus of Capella Hotel Group. He is on 5 boards, and he also does some consulting and advisory work. Horst is passionate about employee experience, and you will hear him mention it several times throughout our conversation today. He talks about the importance of giving employees a purpose, giving them context around why they are doing what they are doing, and why it matters. And he also believes in helping them to feel like they belong. These are just some of the crucial elements that Horst used to build a successful brand. And he gives specific examples of how he did this at the Ritz-Carlton when he was there. He also feels that we have a leadership crisis today, and you will hear what that crisis is and what he suggests we do to fix it. We also discuss how hiring has changed, what Horst's most difficult business decision was, his take on millennials, and much more. Although we did have a couple spots with some connection difficulty, I still wanted to share this podcast with you because I found Horst's advice to be very on point and his stories are fascinating, so I hope you enjoy.
You cannot say we are a team. What is a team? A team is a group of people who support each other toward a common goal, a common objective. So if I'm not giving the objective of the organization, immediately we are not really a team. We're just fulfilling functions. And then management controls and watches if the function is fulfilled properly. And they should see that. But the individual employee should know why he or she is fulfilling the function. Where does it take us in order to accomplish a common objective? That is the problem. Management doesn't do that. Management just forces things to happen.
This is Jacob Morgan, best-selling author, speaker, and futurist. Welcome to the Future of Work podcast, where every week I speak with C-level executives, business leaders, and authors to explore how the workplace is changing and what the future of work is going to look like. The goal of this show is to give you the insights, the ideas, and the inspiration to help future-proof your career and your organization. If you want to get access to more content, such as podcast transcriptions and information on working with me or having me keynote your next event, you can visit thefutureorganization.com. If you get a few seconds, please rate the podcast on iTunes or whatever your preferred channel is. It really helps the show, and I personally appreciate it since the podcast does take quite a bit of effort to produce. In case you are interested in sponsoring the podcast or working with me, my email is jacob@thefutureorganization.com. Lastly, I launched a new community called The Future If, which is a network of business leaders, authors, and futurists, some of whom are podcast guests, who explore what our future can look like if certain technologies, ideas, approaches, and trends actually happen. Each week, we explore a new topic, which ranges from autonomous vehicles, AI and automation, leadership and management, biohacking, and anything and everything in between. If you want help figuring out hype from reality and are interested in having deeper conversations about the future, then I encourage you to visit thefutureif.com. Thanks for coming along on this journey, and I hope you enjoy the Future of Work podcast. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Future of Work podcast. My guest today is Horst Schulze, co-founder of the Ritz-Carlton Hotel Company and author of a brand new book called Excellence Wins. Horst, thank you for joining me.
Delighted to be with you.
So you actually have a really cool story. So before I jump into a lot of the themes that you talked about in the book, I thought maybe you can give us a little bit of background information about you and how you even got involved with Ritz-Carlton.
Well, I actually started in the hotel business when I was 14 years old. Bus boy, eventually waiter, worked in the kitchen and so on. And then in '64, I came to the United States, worked in Hilton, got my first little promotion, worked in a club as manager, restaurant manager, and so on. And then worked with Hilton again as catering manager, became food and beverage director for Hilton, after which I joined Hyatt in 1973. I became food and beverage director in a new hotel in Chicago, was promoted after a year or so to rooms manager, became all with Hyatt, became a general manager in Pittsburgh, and then general manager in a large hotel, Hyatt Regency in Dearborn, Michigan. Following, 2 years later, I became regional vice president for 10 hotels for Hyatt. And after that, I became charge of food and beverage operations for the United States for Hyatt, for all hotels. And after a couple of years, I got a call. There was a hotel, 2 hotels being built in Atlanta, and they wanted to create a new brand. Somebody knew me, recommended that I would run that brand operationally, and the people that were building it were builders, investors, and developers. So they negotiated me for a while. I really had no interest. I loved Hyatt. I had my golden handcuff. I lived in the city that I love, Chicago. But they kept on talking to me. And a vision formed in my mind. What would I do if I started a new hotel company? And a dream started. And that dream started to control me. And after many discussions, I said yes. I left Chicago with tears in my eyes, leaving wonderful people, a wonderful company, moved to Atlanta, and a little over a year later opened our first hotel in Atlanta. And the rest is the history,
Wow.
I left 19 years after that. I left, and we had hotels around the world. We were voted #1 hotel company in the world. not only that, we were voted #1 brand in the world. So that's kind of my story.
Wow. Yeah. So it sounds like you had the opportunity to live in different countries, different cities, and see a lot of the world and experience quite a few things.
That's for sure. Well, in Europe, I did the typical European hotel thing. Started as I said, as a busboy in Germany, worked in Switzerland, worked Holland, America line, worked Switzerland again, worked Paris, 3 years in the Plaza Athénée, worked in the Savoy in London, and that's when I came over. Somebody offered me to come over to the United States, which I did for a year, and I'm still here.
Yeah.
By the way, very, very legal, very legal.
Yeah, you gotta make sure to point that out on the podcast.
Yeah.
So you've been in this space for many decades now.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, since you first started off, hotels have changed quite a bit. The way that we work has changed quite a bit. What are some of the big trends or changes that you've seen during the course of your career as far as work and business goes?
Well, first of all, there's hotel restaurant business. And there's no comparison. A great restaurant when I came here in the mid-'60s was a rib house, if you will. There was very little of sophisticated restaurants. Today they're everywhere. There is not only that, there's variation. There's so much variation. There's from a Bulgarian restaurant to Chinese or to a Japanese restaurant, etc., which hardly existed at the time. The approach and service was also very unsophisticated. And today it is very professional, very sophisticated. It is a different world. On the other hand, the hotel industry is changing in the process dramatically. That means the segmentation from red roof to ultra-luxury hotel, that is happening, and which is still happening. And I see, for example, most hotels, most brands that are becoming more and more a commodity for sleeping. There's nothing wrong with that, by the way. I'm not complaining about it. On the other hand, the individual hotels are becoming very sophisticated in true service delivery and experience. That's happening in the hotel industry. And luxury has changed dramatically. Luxury at the time when I came here was seen as marble chandeliers, artwork, etc., etc. Today, luxury in the beholder is do it my way. If you do it my way, I consider it luxury. Of course, the surrounding has to be right. Everything has to be right. But if you respond to me, individualization and personalization is luxury in any business today. So that is kind of the huge change, is that it's not anymore buying what is there, but creating what the individual needs and wants. That is the big change.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. What about any changes that you've seen as far as work goes? So, over the last 30, 40 plus years, if you were to look inside of companies, how we work, business practices, have you seen any really big changes there?
Yes, and it is, I think, though, there is still a lot to be done. When I came here, it was very strictly, this what you do, I tell you so, do it. And then have control over it. Today, it's more a measurement. Today's worker wants to have elbow room and be part of an organization. And that's where we're still missing a lot. Even though we know forever, for thousands of years, people want to be part and want to have purpose. We're still lacking offering people that come to work for us purpose and being part. That's what we're still lacking, even though we are much better than it was 30, 40, 50 years ago.
So that's the big area that organizations still need to work on.
Yes, that's a big area we have to work on. I mean, what we do, and I stress that a lot in my book there, what we do actually, we still hire people to fulfill certain functions. But the chair on which we're sitting is fulfilling a function. We have to become more aware that we actually hire human beings that want to be part of something and not just fulfill a function like the chair which we're sitting on. So once that understanding becomes deeper, we will adapt and create our systems around it. We talk a lot about alignment with little meaning. When I talk to leaders and ask what is the vision of the organization, most leaders, unfortunately not all, have an answer what their objective is. But if you go into business and an employee, what's the objective of the organization? Nobody knows it. So how possibly could they belong? And I think we have to move away from that. And that, by the way, is Taylorism. Taylorism, which was created, Taylor, who taught Ford how to do it, give people very little thing to do, and out comes an automobile. They don't even have to know that it is an automobile they're building. As long as they tighten those 4 screws, add this piece to it, and so on, and let them do that. We think management, they do. As you know, Ford in fact said, don't hire people with 2 hands, hire somebody with 4 hands. I don't need anybody with 10. What a horrible thing. But that, thank goodness, is over. But now we still have to move forward and understand they're human beings. They're not just fulfilling functions.
I think that's
alignment has to mean
message.
Something.
Yeah. No, I mean that's a great message, and I couldn't agree more. I'm curious, what does a typical day look like for you now?
Well, being practically retired, but sold my company a year ago, Capella, but I still have some obligation to oversee the hotel, not manage the hotel, not run the hotel, oversee. CEO emeritus, you know what that means. I'm still involved.
Of course.
But on the other hand, I'm on 5 board of directors, which keeps you quite busy if you want to be truly serve a board. That means you have to inform yourself really what's going on. Besides that, on some committee, I make speeches. I'm on the Washington Speakers Bureau, and I do some consulting. So what happened? I retired, and I'm more busy than ever. But it's great. It's great to contribute to different companies, unrelated hotel business, which I did, and finding it's all the same. Take care of the customer.
Yeah.
Take care of the employee, and be a good leader.
It should be that simple. You would think that we would be able to figure it out by now. Sadly, still people are figuring it out.
I think so too.
One of the things I'm also really curious about, are there any business or workplace practices that you can think of that used to be mainstream when you were working during the course of your career that are now obsolete, that we just don't do anymore, that have just disappeared?
I couldn't think of anything offhand here. But there's a lot new. Again, there is what we did so much in the hotel business. I can refer now to the hotel business. We did things by knack, meaning by our feeling and by our neck and by our creativity. As the business grew, and we had other hotels, once I had Ritz-Carlton, I opened by my feeling. I walked by the buffet and made sure it was set up right. I walked around and showed them how to create games. Do that once I had the second, third, and fourth. So, what other was concentration on process has become extremely important. We don't, generally in business, we don't just hire anymore by feeling. By our feeling, we have processes to identify the talents of a certain people. We know what talent is needed in a certain job category. So we create profiles around the job category and hire against those profiles. That didn't exist. It's very, very, very important to understand that. And also, we actually, in which we didn't at all, we asked for feedback. Often, not always, for feedback from the people who fulfill the process, because after all, they know what's going on in the process. So we get feedback rather than just without the feedback in the process, without the feedback of the people connected to the process. Those things have changed, thank goodness, which makes everything better. So there are many of the human elements that do have changed. But as I expressed earlier, we are not far by no means. There was a survey done about 20 years ago. I know it's out of, maybe it's too old, but the 3 million people asked what improvement workers in the US and Europe, many universities were involved. And the number one thing they wanted is elbow room. They said, let me do my job. I know my job better than you do. Let me do it. But we still were in Taylorism and send a memo how they should do it. Ridiculous, yeah. Isn't it?
Not as effective. So you talked about how there used to be a time when you used to be able to hire employees based on a handshake, based on a relationship, and today you really don't see much of that anymore. Today there's a lot of technology and AI and data and analytics, and I'm curious, when you look at how hiring has changed over the last 30, 40 years, is it actually better now, or was it better before when you could just kind of, interview somebody, give them a handshake, and just kind of know if they're a good fit or not with that feeling instead of having all the data and technology involved?
We are heavily exaggerating it today. The many tests you're missing often the best people because of the exaggeration of tests. Yes, we developed a profile for each job category, and we have many in a hotel, and we hire against that profile. And that profile, we determined what is the talent needed for a specific job category. And then we developed the questions how to see if that person has that profile. For example, let me give a funny, silly example. A doorman, we found in our interviewing our best doorman, for some reason they had all one thing in common. They all enjoyed gardening. Now that's funny. Now it is kind of normal though, because a doorman likes to be outside. So we use this kind of simplicity, and there are many other questions, obviously, to find the person for a specific job category. We didn't go further than that, which is only confusing to a human being. And I have seen job interviews that are absolutely ridiculous, confuses a person, nothing but confuses a person, never establishes, is that person truly talented for this particular job? It is too much.
Yeah, I hear all sorts of stories. I think it was Google that was famous for asking people weird questions like, how many golf balls can you fit into a Boeing 747 jet? Right?
Yeah,
they would ask all these.
That.
Yeah, all these.
I heard that. Or even the thing that's still often used. What kind of animal do you want to be? For crying out loud. Come on. What's the difference if I want to be a chicken or a lion? And then they say, oh, the lion is good. Well, who knows? Maybe it's the chicken that's better.
Well, today, there are also different technologies that companies are using. I know, for example, I think it's Unilever, where one of the things that they do is they have employees play games either on their phone or on their computer. And as they play the games measure different skills that the employee might have. Like, do you prefer risk or do you not like risk? Do you have emotional intelligence or not? And so now a lot of technology is being used in this process, and employees have to go, pass all these technology tests before they even get to see and talk to a human. And so I'm guessing you think that we probably are using technology a little bit too much here.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I wonder if that test, forgive me to be silly, if that test also tells them if the person that's being interviewed is a pedophile. Come on. I mean, it's so exaggerated, everything. It's overly exaggerated. Is that person taking strange drugs or not? Or doesn't tell him that. It's exaggerated.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't really focus on, I suppose, understanding the employee as an individual, which I think is
exactly.
Important. Yeah. Well, one of the things that you talked about in the book is this idea of humanness and treating your employees like humans instead of individuals. And I was wondering, do you have any interesting stories or examples or ways that you were able to implement this at Ritz-Carlton? How did you go about making sure that all your employees really felt like they were treated as humans, as individuals?
Well, let me underline that. Understand, Ritz-Carlton was in many cultures, in many locations, and in every location we were the leading hotel. We were the leading hotel voted leading hotel. And by the way, #1 brand in the world. So, and each hotel is truly a separate business. Each hotel is owned by a different owner. We only manage hotels. So we were very successful everywhere. And what was the secret? The secret is the answer to your question. We #1 selected, as we discussed. #2, and extremely important, we oriented our employees to who we are. In fact, when we opened a new hotel, and there are 55 Ritz-Carlton hotels, no matter where that hotel was, if it was Shanghai or Hawaii or Philadelphia, I went there. And the first day the employees started to work, and I told them who we are. I invited them to join us, not work for us. Join us, join our dream, and here is our dream. And I told them the motive of our dream. In our case, we want to be the global leader in the services industry. I gave them the motive of our dream, to be recognized, to be honored, to grow. I showed them how their motive of working fits our motive. If we accomplish what we do, you will have opportunity, you will have honor, you will have recognition. So that orientation, we didn't teach them their function. In fact, the second day, we then sat down with them and let each department, they themselves, write their mission statement together. So they were belonging. And on the third day, we taught them these things which we have to do superior to competition to make us the #1 in the world and get the recognition accordingly. And then, of course, we created all processes behind those 20 things. And then every day from there on, we repeat one of those points in every hotel before every shift. Today, it may be point number 12. If somebody asks for direction, don't point, take them there. That is being taught today in every shift, everywhere. because we knew that would make guests happy. And we have countless compliments on that. So, and there are other points. So now all of a sudden, employees don't just work, they belong. And every day before every shift, we repeat one of the points, but we also share what is going on, what is new in the company. We just signed the contract in Nanjing. The hotel will open in about 2 years. Everybody knew, everybody belonged, was part of the company, and I explained that in detail. I also explained the 20 points in detail in my book. So it was discussed every day. And today is point number 12. In 20 days is point number 12 again. It's that important. So from the beginning, from the selection, we connected them truly to the company and the belief and the importance. We aligned them. We aligned them what the company thinks, what the company is, and what the customer, what the guest wants from us. And there's no employee who doesn't know the vision and the mission of the organization, the key objective of the organization, and the expectation of the customer. So that is how they belong. That's why we had a culture second to none. People didn't leave us. Mind you, our industry, it is kind of fascinating, had at the time an employee turnover annually in the United States of 120. Think about that.
120%, you said?
Ours was less than. Yes.
Wow. And yours
ours was 20.
Wow.
20%. We didn't pay more. We never became union. When in fact in San Francisco, the union was picketing us for 3 years. The employees didn't vote union, and we didn't pay more. People belonged, were aligned. We didn't just use the word alignment, which everybody uses today. We did it.
And I have your book here, and I just want to, I have these 20 points, and I just wanted to read maybe one or two of them just so that listeners can see what these points are. So point number 6 on here, for example, was you are responsible to identify and immediately correct defects before they affect a guest. Defect prevention is key to service excellence. And then maybe one more I'll read is escort guests until they are comfortable with the directions or make visual contact with their destination. Do not point. And so you mentioned you have these 20, standards, and you would just go over one of these before each one of your meetings so that the employees kind of, it sinks in with them.
That's correct.
But how did you, a lot of companies, for example, they have mission statements and values, and sometimes these things are just words and phrases, and it really doesn't sink into employees. Like, they don't really connect with it. They don't really live it.
Yeah.
So how do you go beyond just making, just talking about these 20 things to really creating that alignment? Like, how do you make that connection with the employees so that they act these things out?
Yeah, as I explained, we first teach those points the third day of their employment. They have not learned function yet. And let's stop for a moment here. How does orientation usually happen in a company? The new employee comes in, the boss makes a team speech. We're a team here, without giving the objective, because without the objective, you're not a team. But we're a team here. And then the new waiter, Bill, is turned over to the waiter that is here already 9 months, Susie. And Susie takes Bill to the kitchen. And on the way to the kitchen, she most likely says, this company is not good. And that is Bill's orientation. It's how it works in every business. We don't do that. We tell them the first day who we are. The second day, we tell them the expectation, everything of the customer. And those 20 points are being taught the third day. And then we explain the importance. And then, as I say, we repeat one point every day, but we don't just read it. We explain it again. We read letters from guests that made reference to that particular situation, complimenting that we told them that we didn't point. We constantly connect them, and we tell them every day a little bit what is going on in the company. They all feel part of the company. Adam Smith, 300 years ago. Now let's understand this. 300 years ago, Adam Smith, in his second book, where he studies the human beings, said, human beings cannot relate to orders and direction. And what do? We give orders and direction. He said human beings can only relate to motive and objective. Objective meaning the vision of the company, which we tell them the first day. We want to be the leader in the world in services. That's our vision. And motive, and here's motive. Adam Smith said it 300 years ago. By the way, Aristotle. So it's really quite simple.
Sorry, what did you say about Aristotle? You cut out there for a second.
Aristotle said 3,000 years ago.
Oh, so even
that
before...
human beings, even before that human beings need purpose and belonging. So why don't we give it to them? The purpose of our company was to be the global leader in the service business. That's what we invite them to be part of, a purpose and belonging. And here's how what we do, and here's how you're part of that. So it's very clear that this is known for thousands of years, but we have to apply it for our companies. And that's why we did that. And that repetition, keep on repeating it, keep on telling stories around it. Don't just read it. No, here's the story. Here is an incident the guest has, referring to that particular basic of the day.
I really like the story piece. I think organizations need to do a much better job of using those stories to connect the work that an employee does to the impact that they have.
Jacob, you said it, and as you can see in my book, I try to not write an academic book. I try to tell a story around how to be successful in business. It's a story.
It is. Yeah, it very much is. It's interesting. You mentioned Adam Smith, you mentioned Aristotle, and so we've talked about purpose and meaning, as you mentioned, for thousands of years. But how come, or why do you think organizations have not embraced this? Because if we've talked about it for 3,000 years, you would think that 3,000 years ago, these are the types of things that we would start to build, and that today we would live in a world where everybody loves their jobs, there's purpose and meaning at work, and everything's wonderful. But the exact opposite is the case. What do you think the big problem is? Why can't companies get this right?
Well, we all have learned from people like me in my age. I learned from people that believed in the teaching of Taylorism, where you hire people, you make them do the job, they don't have to think, as long as they do it, and you control and you watch over them. We still have one foot in that, because I learned it from my bosses. I was lucky I had one boss who was the opposite, but we learned it from the people who learned it in business school. Do, control, measure, do that, and correct, and so on, which is necessary. But the controlling part has to stop, and in making people part has to replace it. Making people part of what you're doing rather than controlling them what they're doing. But we're still in it. And let's face it, it's partially also an ego thing. Now I'm a manager. I'm controlling. Well, but the question has to be asked, and frankly, easy to answer, is what employee will do a better job? The one that must do the job and is controlled to do it, or the one that wants to do the job? The answer should be quite easy. So in other words, I have to create an environment in which employees want to do the job, and that is leadership. And now we have arrived on the problem. We have a leadership crisis. People are managers. People are forced being managers. They're forced today all to control, to be controlling and managing the money instead of managing all that makes the money. The money is made by good people creating a great product. But we don't concentrate on that. We concentrate on the cost and then bottom line, because we are forced to report to Wall Street every 3 months. And guess who gets the applause? The one that created a great product or the one that created a great profit? The guy with the profit gets the applause, even though he messed the product. And pretty soon you're not in business anymore. That's the problem. The circumstances is the problem. We have to step away and concentrate on the things that make money. That's human beings, and the product which we produce makes money. If I have a better employees, I will be able to create a better product. And consequently, sooner or later, I will make more money. And I have to look at the money. The money comes if everything else is right. Of course, I have to be efficient. And if anybody interprets here that I'm saying we shouldn't be efficient, we should waste money, of course not. But we should concentrate on people who join me in being efficient and create a great product.
How do you get that different way of thinking to avoid the short-termism, to focus more on the long term? Is there any advice or suggestions you have for how we can embrace that new way to think about stuff?
Well, leadership is the standard setter of the product. It's leadership. Someone that I was connected with just recently, employees, that they have some bad employees. Wait a second. That has nothing to do with the employees. Maybe they were raised wrong by their parents. But you, leader, you were the dummy that hired them. It's your problem. Why? What makes you a leader? Select the right employee. Maybe you didn't teach them right. Maybe you didn't orient them right. But it's your problem. We are responsible, not the employee. The leader is responsible. We have a crisis. Make sure, are you teaching them right? Are you encouraging them right? Are you also showing what the product has to be? The leaders set standards. Now, if the leader has the right vision for the company, and here's the key, asks himself, is that vision good for all concerned? Meaning the customer, the investor, the employee, and society. If the answer is yes, then at that moment, the leader is in charge of the standards for that vision and cannot compromise it, has no right to compromise it. Leader compromise, on the other hand, they insist on the bottom line. It doesn't work like that. You do not compromise on your product. You do not compromise on your excellence. You keep on teaching, you keep on selecting, you keep on working, and make sure that the guest, the customer, gets the best product they can get based on what you're creating. That you should be certain they cannot get a better product from any competitor. And then you're making money. And this can only be produced with the right people that are led, that are not controlled, that have elbow room, that enjoy working and want to be excellent.
Yeah. Hey, I agree with 120% everything that you're saying. But you mentioned an interesting point, which is the accountability, not just for employees and customers, but also for society as well. And I feel like that's also a little bit new, right? Because the company now isn't just responsible for shareholders, but is also responsible for kind of, making the world a better place, impacting the community.
Absolutely.
Is that a new thing? Or has that been around since you started your career as well?
I must say it is new that we give it a lot of words and a lot of PR, but it really existed always. We made sure in the first hotel that we didn't make any noise on the loading dock for our neighbors, that we didn't waste things. We made sure that good leftovers went to the hospital or to the poor, etc. It's not that new, but we enjoy to say that we are doing the right thing for society today. It's just a lot of words. Now, have we improved it? We have improved it by sorting. We didn't throw all the garbage together. We thought, yes, we have improved things, but it's not new. That is, we're talking ourselves into it within our PR to the world.
Yeah, I have a feeling that it's something that's been around for a while, and it's just kind of getting a different spin on it.
Oh, sure, it is.
How has leadership changed? So, I mean, you talked about a little bit about this earlier, where it used to be very much kind of command and control and telling everybody what to do, and now it seems like leadership is more about, I think you mentioned being a servant and helping others.
Absolutely.
And sometimes, so this is like an actual change that you've seen, where leaders and managers in the past very much used to be command and control, and now that model no longer works.
Well, it doesn't work well anymore, but it still exists. Very strongly so, this command and control. And as I touched on earlier, much has to do with ego. The young people come out, now all of a sudden the manager, I'm in charge. And in fact, a few years ago, I was opening a hotel, and I explained the team, in this case, the room service team, the waiters, the busboy, the order takers, and the manager, that everyone should see mistakes, everybody should speak up, everybody should the manager if we can do things better. And the manager, as a result, quit. Because he said, I don't have employees telling me what to do. I'm the manager. That feeling still exists. Terribly wrong, but it still exists.
So you actually had a manager quit?
It's quit.
Wow.
Because I said, well, that went against his ego, that an employee could say how to do the job better. But the employee knows best because they're fulfilling the process, not the manager. But in this case, the manager, and that feeling still exists quite strongly out there. I know better, they say. But it is slightly changing, and much of the new labor force demands it. The millennials say, they don't come to work to do a bad job, but they want to be part of something. And they say, what is in it for me? Now, in a way, we said that too, but we were scared to speak up and ask it. They are willing to speak up and say, what's in it for me? What is in it for me? If we say our vision is to be the leader in the world in the service business, they will say, what is in it for me? They want to know. And I think we are obligated to tell them that anyway. How is our motive connected to their motive? So what happens is the leader is kind of forced to communicate belonging to the millennials. That is good. But the truth is, there's still a leadership crisis. There are a lot of managers. And again, the reason is, as I explained before, but that by society, by ownership, by asset managers, by Wall Street, they're forced to concentrate on the money rather than on the product.
In your book, you talk about, actually, I found this to be quite funny. You talked about a couple examples of just common jargon that we use in the business world. And then I just wanted to read some of these because I was actually laughing when I read this. So some of them were, we're a team, we're committed to empowerment, we have an open door policy, we're a family. And so these are all things, and to add to that, we always hear about transparency and authenticity as well. Like these are all phrases that companies use. Do you think companies actually mean this when they say that, or it's just kind of words?
No, those are just the words. It's just like a bunch of ducks quacking. I'm sorry. Because everybody uses it. If you want them to belong, you have to explain who you are. You cannot say we're a team. What is a team? A team is a group of people who support each other toward a common goal, a common objective. So if I'm not giving the objective of the organization, immediately we are not really a team. We're just fulfilling functions. And then management controls and watches if the function is fulfilled properly. And they should see that. But the individual employee should know why he or she is fulfilling the function. Where does it take us in order to accomplish a common objective? That is the problem. Management doesn't do that. Management just forces things to happen. And in my humble opinion, and I made a study of 65 general managers to see who are the leaders, who are the managers. Now, admittedly, very unscientific study. My study over 3 years looking at 65 managers. I came to the conclusion, in my opinion, I emphasize that, there were 5 leaders and 6 leaders had the objective of moving everybody forward toward a common goal. The managers want to force things so we make a profit.
And you had
that's a state statistic.
Yeah. So you said you had 5 managers and 60 leaders? Or no, sorry, 60 leaders and 5 managers.
That's the problem. Yeah.
Too many managers, not enough leaders. And I think that's something a lot of people would agree with as well. Well, I know we're almost out of time. I just had a couple questions for you. How has inspiring employees changed? So if you were to look at the course of your career, how do you think it's changed the way that we inspired employees in the past versus the way that we have to inspire employees now? Are the same things that motivated and inspired employees 20 years ago the same things that still work today?
No. And I come back to comments that I made before. Today, the employee wants to know, what is in it for me? Do I have elbow room? Can I make decision? Can I comment about? And that is very strongly so. 20 years ago, no, I would say 30 years ago, the number one expectation of a job was how much money do I make? In surveys, that was true. Today, the number one question is, can I belong? Can I have effects? And they want to know the flexibility. They want to know of work. They want to know how they can give input at work. And all those nice phrases don't work anymore. Open door policies were mentioned and the door may have been open, but everybody was scared to walk through the door. Nobody walks in because everyone was scared. That the demand of the employee today is that they can speak up today. And again, this huge thing, I cannot overemphasize it, is sense of belonging.
For people listening to this that are thinking, okay, maybe this works for the hotel industry, but I work at a software company, I work at a manufacturing company. Do you have any advice for how people can apply some of your concepts and ideas inside of their own organizations? Where can they start? What should they be doing or thinking about?
Well. I am connected to many other companies. I am on the board of a major financial company. I'm consulting with a nice bank that has about 100 small banks around a state. I'm with a very nice medical company. We have about 80 offices around the country with 8 doctors, general practitioners, etc. It works in each of those organizations. Nothing to do with it. It all means the same. What does orient the right employee? Orient them right. Orient them to who you are. Invite them to be part of your organization. Be sure they know your objective. Be sure you have a beautiful objective. I see many companies that don't even have an objective. There should be a beautiful objective that it is of which you are proud. And anybody that joins you should be able to be proud of that objective. Be aligned. That means alignment. Focus on the customer. Don't focus on what you believe. Focus on what the customer believes about your product. A study of one has no meaning. Understand the market segment and focus on your market and not what you think your product should be. That is a study of one. So, and then align every employee behind it. Tell them how they are connected, and then keep it sustained. Then why do they spend billions in advertising? Because if you don't remind everybody, it goes away from your mind. So you have to remind your employees ongoing, what is the objective? What are the things we have to do in order to be the leader in our industry? That is good for anybody. It has nothing to do with the hotel business. And it works dramatically well in a number of companies and some of them that I'm consulting with.
Who has been, and these are just a couple of rapid fire questions, just so people can get to know you a little bit better. So first, very quick question for you is, who's been the greatest mentor you've ever had?
By my maitre d', who when I was 14 years old, the first day at work, he told me, don't come to work. Come to work to create excellence in what you're doing. Now, at that time, it went over my I wash dishes, I clean floors, but slowly understood. He made it clear, you excellence because you're defining yourself by what you do. No matter what your job category, if it is a dishwasher or the general manager, you define yourself as somebody excellent or somebody that is not so good. Very important thing for me to learn, and it stuck with me. Create excellence because you define yourself at work and not at home while you're watching TV.
I think that's a great one. Next quick question for you is, what is your favorite business or non-business book that you recommend other people read? Besides from your book, of course.
Unquestionably, two books. Is Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Leadership. Unquestionably. Really learning it, really understand. The other one, of course, is Peter Drucker. About culture. Culture, it's strategy for breakfast. He said it, he's right. and I applaud it and I live it.
What has been your greatest business failure?
Oh, flat in my face many times, ignoring a certain clear situation in the location where I was, not adjusting well enough to the sense of place where I was, trying to force the issue even though it was not fitting in a certain location.
And it didn't work out well?
It didn't work out well.
Yeah. And maybe one or two questions for you. What has been the hardest business decision you've ever had to make?
Well, for me, the hardest was actually leaving Hyatt Hotels, which was a great company. I had golden handcuff, I had everything. But this dream of starting a new hotel company overcame me. I left. Now, that was by any means a pretty stupid decision to leave a hotel company where I was in charge of 65 hotels, had golden handcuffs and everything, and moving to another city that didn't even started to work with a company that didn't even have a hotel. But I followed the dream, but the rest is history. It worked out, but it was a stupid decision.
And very last question for you. If you think you would have ended up doing a different career, what career do you think you would have ended up doing instead?
The hotel business, again and again and again. I don't want to do anything else. That's what I love. Maybe when I see it today, hospital, because that is very fulfilling. It's basically the same, but at the same time, you're truly serving people.
Yeah. Well, where can people go to learn more about you and your book and some of the stuff that you're doing? Anything that you want to mention, please feel free to do so.
No, I mean, if you would read the book, it's very easy read. I purposely wrote it as a story, so it's not an academic, difficult book with charges. I did that purposely so young people would enjoy it too. And from there on, you will see where else you can go.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join me and to share some of the interesting stories and insights you've had over the course of your career. And I definitely recommend everybody check out your book. It's called Excellence Wins. So, Horst, thank you again for joining me.
Jacob, I enjoyed being part of you.
And thanks everyone for tuning in. My guest again has been Horst Schulze, co-founder of the Ritz-Carlton Hotel Company. Make sure to check out his book called Excellence Wins, and I will see all of you next week.